OECD.AI Policy Observatory, which is a one-stop shop for AI data and trends, offers some stark evidence to help us find answers to these questions. Let me share a few data points with you. In OECD countries, more than twice as many young men than women aged 16 to 24 can program, which is an essential skill for AI development. Across Namibia, Nigeria, and South Africa, women contribute to only about 1/3 of AI scientific publications. In South Africa specifically, men are twice as likely as women to report AI-related skills on LinkedIn. The fact that the gender gap persists when we look at AI is not surprising. We know there is more work to do. So it's my pleasure to kick off this panel today to explore how policymakers, technologists, and users can catalyze AI to promote gender equality across the African continent.
If we want technology to be socially beneficial, we need women to be leading and at the forefront. We have learned from the history of peacekeeping and development that when women are leading, the net social benefits are greater. AI is an industry that's currently run by men. It's currently run by male egos. It's run by money. These are the leading incentives that are driving this industry. We need these incentives to change. And I'm not trying to talk in essentialist language, but I'm saying we need to think about this whole kind of value system in which the production and the advancement of AI is working, and how do we counteract some of these imbalances that are not leading to the even distribution of benefits for of AI's benefits.
We have a very great divide between developers and policymakers, in that the developers want to move in one direction and policy just comes in to react to oh, this has been done, we are responding to some of these accidents that have already happened. So how can we make sure that there is a consultative process where by the time an AI technology is developed, we have already incorporated female leadership, we have already incorporated the voice of a young female leader, we have already incorporated an engineer's perspective and a lawyer's perspective in the table before we have deployed the technology.
It starts by listening and not assuming that as a man on this panel, I'm coming in with the answers that relates to different experiences. I think if we take a step back and say, what at the end of the day, what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve access to our entire communities. It just makes economic sense for members of our societies to not be left out in the economic prosperities of artificial intelligence. That's the end goal.
So we have the data finalized and collected for 36 African countries. Of those 36 African countries, 12 countries have evidence with regards to actions or frameworks relating to gender equality and artificial intelligence. Senegal is taking the lead because they have references to gender equality and AI within their national strategy and roadmap on artificial intelligence. But there are government actions taking place in Libya, Morocco, Somalia, Tunisia, and Zimbabwe to advance women's participation in AI. The majority of these actions are things like government-led trainings on artificial intelligence and gender equality, or bringing women into this space.
I would like to say, I think as a founder, one of the trends that I see is difficult to do is raise capital within the AI fraternity within Africa. I think that most of the capital, just borrowing from the UN interim report on artificial intelligence, we see the trend that there's a divide, a capital divide within the AI space, a talent divide as well. And most of the capital and the talent is concentrated in the global north. I see this as challenging, even though the data suggests that Ghana has the highest number of female entrepreneurs, but still raise the least amount of capital within the African continent. There's also a challenge, I think, a gender wage gap within artificial intelligence. If you compare what a software engineer earns in Nairobi, it's about $6,000. But if you look at and they work for the same Silicon Valley companies, even though remotely, they will be paid over $12,000, double that price. You can't react to anything just because your neighbor reacted the same way. What we must do as a continent is look at policy as incentives for AI. What incentives can we have and pick up from what Singapore did and said, for all the people, what we are going to do is to make sure that we give them incentives to go to school. So we make it cheaper for them to ideally reskill and upskill in that sense. Within the African continent, we need to look at how do we offer more female scholarships for women to go into school and learn artificial intelligence. Within civil service, how do we ensure that women, ideally get the resources, even if they're on maternity leave? How do they come back and they have an AI assistant that's making them more efficient, they have more time and more work-life balance? I think that's where we need to go. We need more public-private partnerships on data. And I think at the OECD, what OECD could ideally do, already you have developed frameworks that are very scalable within the African continent. I hope that then we can bring in more African partners and be able to scale the voice of women in AI as experts to join the expert groups that will make sure that women are speaking about their challenges. They're bringing in Africa and very African-centered solutions towards artificial intelligence. Thank you.
I think OECD has started well with this conversation to have dialogues around AI, bringing together colleagues from the global south to have discussions on that. And you already have a very good start with the OECD Observatory, where lessons can be learned, and some of these things can be borrowed in the continent or regional level or the continental level, and also try to adapt to the local context, which is really, really important. And I mean, adapting to the local context, it is important that the African nations or the continent as a whole ask questions that matter in the local context, right?